He watched from his VIP table, hidden behind designer sunglasses, a billionaire used to boardrooms and battlegrounds of finance. But what he saw that night, one humble waitress gently guiding her disabled son to lead a single dance step, shattered something deep inside him. What happened next changed not only her life forever, but his too. Before we begin, tell us in the comments which part of the country you're watching from, and if you believe kindness still exists in this world, make sure you subscribe for more stories that restore your faith in humanity. The summer night air was heavy with the scent of honeysuckle and the distant murmur of jazz drifting from the beachside resort, where golden lights flickered like stars in the windows of the Ocean Pearl Hotel. Inside the ballroom, an elite charity gala was unfolding. Suits crisp, dresses flowing, laughter tinged with champagne, and clinking glasses echoing beneath crystal chandeliers. Seated quietly at a private table in the corner was Bennett Callaway, the elusive billionaire tech mogul whose name often appeared in headlines, but whose face rarely did. Known for building empires and destroying competition, Bennett didn't attend galas for leisure. He came to support causes that padded his image or broadened his network. Yet tonight felt different. His mind wandered, distracted, pulled by a presence not on stage but across the room. A waitress in a worn black apron, carefully balancing a tray of drinks and politely smiling at every table she passed. Her name tag read Emily, and she moved with a grace that seemed too sincere for such a rehearsed, high-society event. Bennett watched her, not with lust or curiosity, but a gnawing sense that she didn't belong here in the way others did, and yet, in a strange way, belonged more than all of them. Emily's shift had begun at 4 and wouldn't end until close to midnight. She'd taken the job at the resort out of necessity. Tips were decent, management lenient about her need to be home for her son, and tonight's event meant overtime. But her heart wasn't in it. She kept checking the clock, not because she was tired, but because her son, Oliver, was waiting in the lobby with headphones on and crayons in his lap. 10 years old, paralyzed from the waist down since birth, Oliver was the heartbeat of Emily's world. Born from a relationship that ended in tragedy, Emily had raised him alone. No child support, no extended family, just grit, grace, and a relentless kind of love that made miracles out of the mundane. She brought him to work when babysitters canceled, let him nap in the employee room, read him bedtime stories on her break, and danced with him in their tiny apartment's kitchen to the sound of her humming. Tonight was special, though. Oliver had asked her earlier, "Can I dance tonight too, Mom?" Even just one step. She'd promised him yes. After a shift, just one step. And now, as her break finally came, she rushed to the lobby, knelt beside him, and whispered, "Ready." Bennett had excused himself from the crowd, citing a headache, and stepped into the shadows of the lobby for air. That's when he saw her. Emily wheeled Oliver into the edge of the now-empty hallway outside the ballroom, music faintly humming through the door. She knelt beside him, took his little hands, and softly began to sway. "You lead," she said. Oliver giggled. "But I can't." She smiled. "Just sway with me, baby. That's dancing too." And they did. Right there, under the hallway light, a mother and son moved to a rhythm that only they could hear, a choreography made of love, struggle, and a longing to feel normal in a world that often ignored people like them. Emily guided him gently, letting his hands take the lead, making it seem like he was the one directing every move. To him, it was magic. To Bennett, watching from a distance, it was like witnessing humanity for the first time. Something inside him cracked. He thought his own son, long gone. A car crash. Years ago, his ex-wife had blamed him for being too focused on business to attend the recitals, the birthdays, the hospital visits. Grief buried deep in ambition had made him rich and empty. But tonight, that emptiness filled with something he hadn't felt in years. Bennett waited until Emily had wheeled Oliver back to the break room and returned to work. Then he made a call. Not to his driver, not to his assistant, but to his lawyer. "I need to set up something." Quietly, he said. "A trust. For a boy. Disabled. Single mother. I want him to have everything my son never could." The lawyer, confused but loyal, agreed. But Bennett didn't stop there. He returned to the ballroom, walked straight to the manager, and asked to speak to the waitress named Emily. Moments later, she stood before him, hair slightly messy, face flushed from work. "Mr. Calloway?" she asked, blinking in disbelief. He stood and extended his hand. "Would you sit with me?" She hesitated, then nodded. Over the next hour, he asked her questions no billionaire had ever cared to ask. Where she was from, what her son loved, what her dreams were. She spoke with hesitation at first, then honesty, revealing how she once wanted to be a dance teacher, how she'd left college when Oliver was born, how every day she feared not having enough for his medical needs. When the gala ended and guests began to leave, Bennett stood up and looked her in the eyes. "You gave your son the most beautiful moment tonight," he said quietly. "It reminded me what I've lost, but more importantly, what I could help someone else gain." The next day, Emily received a call from a private hospital. Oliver had been scheduled for a full, no-cost evaluation. Days later, she received another. A scholarship fund had been opened in her name. A week later, a small dance studio near the beachfront became hers. Rent paid in full for 5 years. The deed was unsigned, anonymous. But she knew. And when she wheeled Oliver into that studio for the first time, saw the mirrored walls and the polished floors, she knelt beside him once again and whispered, "Ready for your first real dance?" This time, he nodded with a sparkle in his eyes, and they danced again, not in a hallway, but in a space built from love, loss, and the kindness of a stranger who saw not what the world saw, but what was possible. Word spread. Her studio became a sanctuary for children with disabilities. Bennett never took credit, but he visited often, sometimes just to watch from the doorway. Other times to volunteer, sweeping floors, fixing broken mirrors, funding new programs quietly. Emily never asked for more than what was given, and that humility touched him. Over time, something began to shift, not just in her life, but in his. He smiled more, slept better. One evening, as Oliver wheeled across the dance floor, showing younger girl how to move her hands to the music, Emily turned to Bennett and said, "You know, you gave us a future." He looked at her, eyes softened by something unspoken. "You gave it to yourself," he replied. "I just saw what was already there." Years passed. The studio expanded. Oliver grew stronger, more confident. Bennett, though still a billionaire, began spending more time in the small coastal town. He never remarried, but some evenings, when the sun dipped low and music spilled out of the studio, you'd find him dancing with Emily under the moonlight. No cameras, no headlines, just two people changed by a single moment of silent grace. And for all the empires he had built, Bennett Calloway would later say, in a rare interview, "The greatest investment I ever made didn't return profits. It returned purpose." And that all started with a mother's promise, a child's belief, and a billionaire's broken heart slowly learning how to heal. Want more heartwarming stories like this? Don't forget to leave a comment below telling us which part of the country you're watching from. And make sure to subscribe so you never miss a story that proves the world still is good in it.